Remember when McFarlane tried to sell us those big giant homunculus gray looking action figures? They were ugly and disgusting, and honestly they were an embarrassment to mankind. Aliens probably saw these from space, and that was the only reason that they decided not to invade planet Earth, because of such ugly figures. But in all honesty, I was very disappointed with these gray figures, these platinum edition figures. For those of you guys that are not too familiar with these, I'll kind of break them down in the simplest form that I can possibly think of. They're basically like ratio variants. For those people that collect comic books, usually like a ratio variant can be like a 1 in 10 ratio variant, or it can be like a 1 in 20 variant. It just depends on the comic book and how many different printings it's going to get, and how many every single comic book can afford to have in their shop. Usually if it's like a really highly printed comic book, if it's an issue that everybody's waiting for, it could potentially be even a 1 in 100 or even a 1 in 1000, which makes it even more unique. But obviously they have a heftier price point usually at these comic shops. That's kind of the idea behind the platinum edition line. And I guess you can kind of call them like chase variants as well. I'm not sure how scarce these are really supposed to be, but I'm going to assume they're probably somewhere along the lines of like a 1 in 10. So like 1 out of every 10 of these figures is supposed to be this platinum edition figure, which for the most part at the beginning was just a gray, ugly looking, unpainted figure. But as time has gone by, I think McFarlane has really rounded out his line. He's figured out exactly what the consumer wants. And for the most part, he's gotten rid of these. I think he started off, and I'll give you guys a couple of examples. A perfect one is the 1966 line, which was released about a year and a half ago. And the Platinum Edition figures for this line were very unique, but they were also just very subtle. It wasn't anything crazy. For the most part, they just had an extra head sculpt, or I should say a different head sculpt. I believe one of them had the mask on, and then the Platinum Edition did not have a mask on. So it was just a subtle little difference, but it added a whole ton of value. And for the most part, people were actually going out there. And I've said this before, I think it's good for the distributors, or, you know, the big chains like Target and Walmart, to have these type of figures in their store, because people that are actually looking for these Platinum Edition figures, they will increase the foot traffic. They're not going to take a chance ordering online, because you never know what you're going to get. And even if you do receive one of these Platinum Edition figures, if you're lucky enough, you might have some issues with the shipping process. Some of these might get damaged or things of that nature. So it's always very important to keep that in mind if you're a collector. Regardless, it started to kind of pick up from there. We saw a lot of, for example, even the more modern takes like the collector's edition line, which features one of the more recent figures, the Wonder Woman, which is supposed to have two different paint stylings. One is supposed to be kind of a rebirth era style of paint, and then the other one is supposed to be a very classic paint deco. So it gives you options. Obviously, I believe the classic paint deco was supposed to be the Platinum Edition figure, so it's going to be very difficult to find. But the list goes on of figures that he's been able to have just minor repaints. Instead of just having a big giant figure that is gray, you know, plastic and unpainted, you could actually get something that had a variation in paint. And that really, in my personal opinion, made people want to go out there and potentially buy or purchase multiples of these to try to get that Platinum Edition figure, or actually go out to stores and spend time in stores. We all know sometimes you walk in there looking, well, in your guys' case, for some extra small condoms. Totally bad joke, but you get what I'm saying. You go in there, you're probably going to buy like diapers or, I don't know, milk, and sometimes you walk out with a cart full of stuff. This is what the retailers want, and I think McFarlane really appeased to that. Not only the retailers, but also the consumer. We were so tired of these minimal effort releases, and so it was really nice that he's starting to put a lot of effort towards that. We've seen a lot of figures. Those are just a few examples of what I'm referring to, but it seems like that's something that he's going to start rolling out. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Hawkman has a Platinum variant with different paint applications, the Superman from the collector's edition line, and also the Green Lantern. All of those, the Platinum Edition is not just some gray unpainted figure. It's actually got a different paint job, which in my personal opinion just adds more value to a figure that was already going to go up in value because of its scarcity. It is also worth noting that even though there are companies and manufacturers right now that do similar things with their lines, for example, Funko Pop and a couple of other big OMs, but for example, Toy Biz, which was a company, or the Marvel Legends line, which was a company that was known for doing that, having, like unmasked variants and things of that nature, or a different color on like an Iron Man suit. They have also gone away from it. So it's a really nice touch from McFarlane. I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating. When McFarlane does something that I think is not in the best interest of the consumer or of the fan base, I am very quick to call it out. But also when McFarlane does something that I feel like is beneficial for his consumer base, I am also one of the first few to just come out and give him credit for something like that. And I believe this new feature that he's implemented with his multiverse line, I think it's hopefully it's something that he continues, but I definitely feel like it's a step in the right direction. Hopefully he continues to expand on this idea or this concept of having the Platinum Edition figure really stand out, especially considering in the early days when he was releasing these gray unpainted action figures, there was very little added value to actually displaying the figure because they were just gray and unpainted, and they didn't look great in your mainline display, especially if you have like a glass case or if you have a shelf that's lighting up. It's just not going to look aesthetically pleasing. And so it's really nice that he's, like I said, he's corrected what I feel like was one of the bigger issues from the DC Multiverse line. But as I mentioned, this is just a rambling video. This is my personal take, my personal perspective. I've actually been meaning to make this video for quite some time. I just hadn't gone around to it because, life. But anyways, I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Let me know down below in the comment section. Do you guys like this new direction for the Platinum Edition line? Let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully, if you guys enjoy the content, you guys can hit the like button and then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you guys can stay up to date with any new content coming your way. So as I said, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.